Today, we are going to turn this pile of parts into this beautiful SHARI PiHatU for the Raspberry Pi 5 so we can make this into an AllStar node. This time on Ham Radio Tube. So the first thing we have to do is drill some holes in the top cover of this case. So we can go ahead and remove the rest. See, we got a fan and a wire and some extra parts in there. Put those aside for a minute. So this is the 3D printed guide for the holes. So with the case upside down, we're going to slide this guide maybe over that. So now we know where to drill the holes. And then I'm just going to take a 1/16 inch drill bit here to mark where those holes should be drilled. Like that. Now using a 1/16 drill bit, I'm going to drill all these out. This far right one we need to make bigger, but I'm going to gradually step that up. Now this far right hole needs to be 9/32, so I'm just going to start gradually embiggening this. Here's an 1/8 inch. And we'll go up to 3/16. And finally 9/32. Voila! Now this next step is going to depend on how you ordered your SHARI AllStar node. For an extra $5, you can have them solder this part on. This is the actual radio module. And there's all kinds of little solder joints around here. They're called castellated joints, I think is the term for them. And it's a pain in the butt. It's fun, but it takes time and patience. There's a video link in the instruction manual for this to learn how to do this. I had a dickens of a time soldering it on the last SHARI node that I built. So to me, it's worth the extra $5 to install this. So once this is installed, we can move on to the next part. Next, we can install our Raspberry Pi 5 into the case. This is just temporary. We're going to install a couple of the screws to hold it in place. Next, we're going to grab the bag that has our SMA connector in it, and we want to grab a couple of these standoffs that are in there. And these are going to go in this hole and this hole. Now, these holes can be pretty tight, so if these don't fit in, take one of these black screws and just screw it in there, and that'll kind of make it work. Probably just gets the paint off. So now we can screw these guys in here. So just screw these all the way down and then back them out. It's a little tight. And then they go in. Voila. Next we can take our GPIO extender guy and fit it over the GPIO pins. And then we can install the board, or the radio module, like that. All right. And then we'll put a screw here and here to secure the radio module. And then we're going to solder all 40 of these pins. Looks pretty good to me. Next, we're going to install the SMA to the board. So I'm just going to remove the screw and the washer. And you've got grounds and a center pin, and then 2 grounds on the bottom. The 2 grounds and the center pin are going to go on top, and we're just going to tack that in place really quick to make sure we have a good fit. Of course, that's easier said than done. That should be good. Then we just want to make sure that the top slides over. We have a nice fit, and we do. So we can continue soldering this properly, or as properly as we can make it. All right. That should be good. Don't judge my soldering skills because they're not good. I'm just going to hit it with some isopropyl alcohol and clean that flux off. I did drown this in flux and reflow these off camera. So that looks pretty good, I think. Now we can unscrew these two screws, and we're going to pop the board off and solder the other side of the SMA. That's not very good. Flux is your friend. Let's reflow this guy too. Clean with a little isopropyl alcohol. And our SMA installation is complete. Next is something I missed during the installation of the radio board. We also have this little guy here that is going to go into this J1 slot. We need to solder that in really quick. There. Now we're going to take the Raspberry Pi out of the case. We need to put on the thermal pads. And we're going to place these thermal pads here, 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 and here. One there. One there. There. And there. Then we can go ahead and reinstall the Pi back in the case and screw it back down. Now we're going to find this bag that has this red and black wire, and there's also a binocular ferrite in there. And we're going to insert one wire in one hole, one wire in another, and then we're going to twist this wire together. Just like that. Now we can connect the fan wire. Now on mine, there's a little cover over where the fan port is, so we're just going to remove that. And how does this go? Plug our fan in. Next we can take the red and black wire that we twisted together and plug that into the top of the radio module. There. And then we can insert it through this little crack there and install the radio board and the GPIOs back on the Pi. Mind the fan wire. All right. Then we're going to take these silver screws that they provide, and we're going to screw the board down to those standoffs. Beautiful. Now the fun part, we get to solder this red and black wire to TP68 and TP69, which are these two little pads right there. So we're going to put a little solder ball on each pad. There already is solder there, but I'm going to add a little bit more. Like that. And our black wire is going to go to 68. And the red wire to 69. Hopefully. Good enough. Then we can just cram the rest of this wire down into this little pocket here. Now he recommends putting some hot glue or something here. I don't own hot glue, so I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And now that I look at this, I don't want those wires touching the other pad, so I'm going to move these really quick. There. That's better. Now, from the Raspberry Pi side, we can remove these two screws that we put in temporarily. Then we can put the bottom cover on and screw that down with the black screws. Be sure not to over tighten. Then we can apply these rubber feet to the bottom of the case, which I think is a job for some tweezers. Beautiful. Then we're going to take this little guy. This is a 3D printed light shield, and we're going to slide it in between these two LEDs, just like that. Then we can install the top cover. So we'll slide the SMA in there, like that. And then we'll use two black screws to screw the cover on. Thusly. And then we can install the washer. Make sure the teeth are going towards the metal case and the nut. And we'll just gently tighten that up a little bit. That's good. Then there is a 3D printed USB plug that we're going to put in the top right USB, because that is what's connected to the wire that we had to solder onto pins 68 and 69. So we don't want to use that. Not that you're probably going to use the USBs for anything on this, but we want to make sure we don't plug anything into that. Then we can apply our sticker. And I want mine to go right around here. And now we can install our antenna like that. So now I'm going to install the software on this. I'm going to use the Allman 3, and I am not the guy to tell you how to do that because I am not a computer guy, but it is fairly easy. On the website for the SHARI PiHatU, in the instructions, there are links to my friend Tim over at the Grayman POTA channel, and he does a fantastic job showing every step how to install this. It's about a 30-minute video, so it's going to take some time, but he does a really good job. Another channel to watch that goes a lot more in depth on AllStar is Freddie Mac over at Ham Radio Crusader. I will leave links to both of their channels, as well as a link to Grayman POTA's installation video, so we can get Allman up and running. So I'm going to do that, and we'll come back and see if this thing actually works. Now, for the most part, the way Tim is showing the installation of Allman 3 on the SHARI PiHat is going to be exactly the same. The only difference, he's using a Raspberry Pi 4, where this is using a Raspberry Pi 5. So there's a little bit of differences. So I'm going to show you what my settings are, because they're ever so slightly different. And I had to call Steve, N8AR, to kind of help me walk through this. So I'm just going to show you how I have mine set up so it'll make sense to you. And this will make way more sense after you've watched Grayman POTA's video. So let's get to it. So when we're setting up the AllStar link in the sudo SA818 dash menu, whatever this is called, we've got the frequency and everything. Notice my volume. I had a long Zoom conversation with Steve, N8AR. Thank you, Steve, on how to set this up, because this is so new and all the info doesn't exist yet. He should have instructions available, hopefully by the time I post this video. Volume, number 6. Change that to 6 per Steve's recommendation. Also recommend using a CTCSS tone. That way, in case, because I'm planning on using this for portable when I'm driving around, if some interference gets into the radio, for example, I know every time my radio is on 146.52 in the car and I drive by a Sonic, I get interference coming in. So if the SHARI is picking up interference, that's going to transmit it potentially to, I'm usually connected to Ham Radio 2.0's node, so that would just send that interference out. So by having the CTCSS tones on, we can help eliminate that. And then E, H, and L, we want to make sure those are enabled per Steve's recommendations. And for the serial port, we want to have that /dev/TTY AMA0. And that is case sensitive, and we're also using a 9600 baud rate. So make sure you have those set, and you should be able to... I was having errors, communication errors, and it wouldn't program the radio part right. So that's how we get that done. And then, as far as setting up the actual audio settings, I'm going to go back into my node settings and my AllStar node. I'm going to go to Update Node, and this Interface Tunes CLI, that's how we can get back to this screen here. Now, one thing that Steve showed me is we can connect to node 55553, and that's going to give us the ability to know how our audio is. So we're going to go to menu 2, and in all the videos I've seen, they're just like, well, get the transmission range between 3 and 5 kilohertz there. Well, by going to that node, we can actually tell. So I'm going to hit 2, and I'm just going to change this. Right now, you can see I'm at 500. I'm just going to change that to 3 and watch what happens. K8MRD testing. We can see I have really low.
Audio level is very low. K8MRD testing.
It tells you the audio level is very low. So we can hit enter again. Let's change it to 900. Really, really high. This is just for an example to show you what happens. K8MRD testing.
Yeah, that's far too loud.
See, it's telling me that that's far too loud. So I can change this to like 525. Try it again. K8MRD testing.
Audio level is a little higher than average.
A little higher than average.
Testing.
And then if I went down to 510, whoops. 510. K8MRD testing.
Audio level is a little higher than average.
Little higher than average.
K8MRD testing.
So when I did this before, change it back to 500. K8MRD testing 1 2.
Audio level is pretty good. K8MRD testing 1 2.
Now earlier when I was at 500, it said it was audio level normal. So depending on how loud you're talking or how far away from the microphone you are. K8MRD testing 1 2. Try and talk a little softer.
Audio level is just about right. K8MRD testing 1 2.
Of course, when you're trying to illustrate a point, let's change it to 490. K8MRD testing 1 2.
Audio level is just about right.
He's supposed to say normal. You get the idea. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Audio level is normal.
There.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
So there you go. And then we can hit enter, and let's hit W to write that. The other thing, 3 and 4, the only one that actually matters is 3. But I set them, notice they're at 950. That's the output volume of the SHARI node. So if there was like a volume knob in there, that turns it up. When I had that at 500, I would have the volume on the radio fully cranked, and I could barely hear it. Now this guy's testing, and I'm only at like half volume, so I would recommend having your 3 and 4, even though 3 is the only one that matters. Crank that up so you don't have to just crank your radio all the way up. And the only other thing that I learned that I think is important to append to Grayman Poda's video, when he's talking about changing the Allmon password, let's go cd space /, hit enter, and then we're going to do sudo, if I can type, space Allmon 3 -passwd space -- delete space Allmon 3. That's going to delete the password. Now this says there's no Allmon 3 on file. That's a good thing. And then we're going to do sudo space Allmon 3 -password. And in the instructions, it will be admin here. Okay? Delete admin and put your call sign in there. Okay? And then enter the password you want. And then confirm it. Okay? And then reboot. So what that does is changes the password, the username and password, when you log in to the dashboard, this screen here. So, for example, I can log out, but when I hit log in, instead of being Allmon 3, it will now be K8MRD and the password that I assigned to it. Now, you might have to do some port forwarding in your router, which is way above my head, and I'm not capable of doing that because I'm not a computer guy unless someone's sitting here holding my hand telling me how to do it. But right now, you can connect. So, like, I connect to Jason's node, but his is like an extended node or something. But you need to find the port that's assigned. There's a default port, and you find it at the AllStar Link website under your node port stuff that looks like this. But basically, if you go to allstarlink.org and sign in under portal, and then under server settings, select your thing there, and you can see this is the port that you want to forward. By default, it's 4569. So you need to do that if you want to have someone directly connect to your node. In my case, I'm pretty much just connected to Jason's node, which is 43136, and we can hear.
Node 43136 connected to node 62160.
And that's it. So we got it working. I didn't break anything. We didn't let any magic smoke out. And now we have a new SHARI Pi hat for the Raspberry Pi 5. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope we learned something more than we confused you. And that's all we got for today. So my name is Mike, K8MRD. Thanks for watching Ham Radio Tube. We'll see you next time. 73.